should be streaming up. And
you know, there was a time that being a Republican in this area of the country.
The hell, Ronald Reagan showed up on my phone all of a sudden. Where did that come from? All right. That was weird. You ever had that? Your phone's in your pocket or something and starts talking? Well, my phone just did it. So we should be streaming. Maybe everybody fell off the face of the earth because of last week. But we'll explain that shortly. Go on here. See if we're live. 3/1/2024. See if we're... And we are live. So I am there. There we go. Hello. So we say hi to Robert. We say hi to Glenn. And hi to Away Girl. So... What's up, Wayne? I am, for one. I did get it all figured out. The camera didn't work, and I sorted that out on my own because, see, again, like I always say, it doesn't matter if someone tells you and explains how to do something and you write down notes, you do get it, and I did get that. So the microphone is working, the camera's working, everything's working just fine. The earth is still round. If you're not a flat earther, those people have a difference of opinion. So anyhow, yeah, and I was just saying as I started is that thing of where your phone's in your pocket or somewhere and you start hearing someone talk and then you realize there's someone just randomly talking and you're like, what is this? And then you look in and you find your phone is suddenly running some random video or TikTok thing from YouTube or Instagram, and for some reason Ronald Reagan started speaking to me. I was like, okay. Hadn't thought about him for a while, and there he was telling a story. So go figure that one. Yeah, always strangeness with technology. So, but got the microphone moved up here, so hopefully everybody can hear good. Yeah, last week Trevor was supposed to run an interview, and I told him, here's a selection of interviews. Let me know which one you pick. I will send you, and it didn't have to be relevant, in my opinion. I'm going to see if I can adjust this without screwing everything up. This should help me. But, so I said, I'll just send you some pictures of the Superstitions. You can do a slideshow during it. And so I went through and I was like, okay, there's some good stuff here. Okay, and it'll be just random stuff out of, my phone. But I figured it'll work good. He can change it and tell me how long the interview is. And then every 30 seconds, the picture would change. And I figured that'll be really nice. And then it came down to Friday, and Trevor wasn't here. He was at a state competition, film competition, and I was in the Superstitions, or actually on the road coming back from Discovery Camp, and nothing was being done. So I was just like, I'm not even going to worry about it. I guess I could have went live in my truck, which would have been a pain in the butt as I was driving. But I just decided no. And, I'm just going to get home. Because I was also carrying, I think it's about a 10-foot trough. 10-foot gold panning trough. Because I'm going to be doing some work on it, refinishing it and stuff for the Dons. So I was bringing one of those home. So I had to bring that home with the grate and the stand and everything and then unload it. So I was like, nah, you know what? I just got all that work done. I'm tired. I'm beat. I got a big day tomorrow, and I still got to unload this stuff once I get home. That's going to be such a pain. So I was on the road, and I thought about it, and I was like, nah. It's just, if I got to get one of those things, those little suction things for, like, where you put your phone up in the truck and stuff. I've never done that. Whenever we film in the truck, I just set it up, and it just sits there. And if it hit a bump, it'll just fall off. So... if I got one of those things, I probably would have tried that. But again, and then you got to worry that since I'm traveling across from one end of the county to the other, that, we're going to buffer what's going to happen. So it was just easier just to say, okay, we take a week off. He didn't post anything. I'm not going to worry about it. So that went, and then we barbecued up. I did a Facebook post on that. It was like 700-800 No, it was over 800, something like that. Hamburgers and hot dogs, and went through over 900 sodas and an equal amount of water. So it was a pretty big day. And then I got to Sunday and had to catch up everything else in life. So it was a very busy weekend. And this weekend's similar. There's a Don's thing tomorrow, so I'm back on the road again tomorrow for that. But yeah, so it was a busy week, and then there's the phone calls and stuff. I forgot to call Frank last week, which I usually every week call Frank and we talk for a while, let him know what's up and what's going on, and I forgot. And then I called him, and he said he was just thinking of calling me. So got that conversation and had a few conversations. Larry Hedrick, and had talked with Shoes and a few other people. So just see how everybody's doing, how things are going with everyone. You get busy and you're just kind of like randomly just trying to check on how people are doing and getting word of this person, that person. And so, but yeah, you're just almost out of breath, and the week went slow because of that. Because I've noticed that when you're so busy, the days are longer. It's when there's less to do, the days seem to go by faster. I don't know why that works for me that way, but that was a long weekend last week, and it seemed to go forever. And this weekend, I'm wondering, because I have less to do, if it'll go faster. So that's that. But yes, we missed a live. So we still made Monday's video and Chasing Legends, and we still kept up that streak of whatever it's at. I don't even know what number, how many, couple hundred or wherever we're at in a row that we've never missed one and never repeated ourselves. That's the cool part, I think. The best part is, and I can't say anything for the first 100 because those were lives, but once we started at, was it 101? I think 101's the first one we started in this series. Once we go from 101 on, it's been consecutive every day or every Monday ever since then. So we haven't missed one. So I'm kind of proud of that streak. I think we've kind of outdone a lot of people, and we haven't repeated. So that's kind of the cool thing. We've never done like some stupid thing of like, pick some wallpaper, here, I'm going to paint the room, watch me. So there we are, and there we go, and it's Friday, finally. So, yeah, no worries, but, there's the expectation, and you have a number of people that, always jump in, and then they kind of like, they really enjoy it. And though it's about an hour today, and it's about 20 minutes on the videos, people kind of are disappointed that those things don't happen occasionally, and it's one of the reasons we do it is just, break up the monotony of people's weeks for little things they look forward to. Howdy, Wayne, here in Cali. Thought we would send a bit of rain and snow to share with Arizona. When? Because we got blue skies. We got nothing. We have nothing. We haven't had anything for a week, and we still got nothing in the forecast right now that I know of. Because right now it's blue skies and really nice, and might be up north, but no, it's sunny, clear, 78, and there's not a sign of clouds for the next week and a half. So stuff might be pushing way north through the Gulf Stream, not coming through here. So the weather's been tremendous because we're in the 40s at night and the 70s during the day. So that's perfect weather for us right now. Getting out when we have the time to get out. So there you go. Kind of that's the update and whatnot and what to do. But yes, I did manage to get this all working. And now I know what to click and how to click and where to click and what to do. So I feel so much better doing all that. So we're back in. Hope everybody enjoyed the Monday video. It's funny. I always have all these different ones. Please don't send rain or snow to Arizona. Lacey and I are leaving next weekend. Yeah, it shouldn't. It should be nice, really nice weather. So this next while, you guys should have a really nice time out. Weather is going to be cool, cold evenings, but nothing a campfire can't fix, and it'll be nice during the day. The days are just perfect, But, when we're picking those videos, I just kind of go through, and I usually, sometimes it's what I think people will be interested in, but sometimes it's just like that one particular. I thought it was just a cool story. and it was a nice story, and I kind of understood it had a little relevance, and I kind of knew of it. It was funny when I talked to Frank, he didn't really mention it at all. He told me, it's funny, he always tells me, quit doing the lives, you just need to do those videos, which it's Trevor. This is all done via Trevor. And even though now at this point lives, he's not even here for them. But it's kind of funny because he's been, get off those lives. Okay, all right. And then now Frank's telling me quit doing those on Monday, do lives. West Virginia, 35. Yeah, it would be colder there. So, and probably damp. So, but yeah, so Frank suggested we do more lives, and I told him, no, I'll do a live on Fridays unless we got some other material, and I said I'll do the Monday Chasing Legends, and then we'll see what we got kind of going out. I know we got some stuff Trevor's got to work through, especially for the History channels, History's Greatest Mysteries. It's not coming up they're only doing about a Monday out on the scheduling, but I'm kind of waiting to see for that because we want to do that video kind of my trip to go film that, to kind of get it out there and kind of run that through by people of what that's like to do those kind of trips and stuff. So we have that. We have one out at the Old Wasp with Shoes and Trevor and myself. We walk through the whole thing and talk about a lot of the history and kind of get dirty down there. But I know there's a couple other things we got, so we're kind of waiting to see what else we do this winter before we kind of decide how we kind of break those up and how we decide to kind of show those and so forth. I know we have one with Randy and myself and Trevor, and so so that's at least there's 3 or 4 long videos, 45 minutes to an hour, some stuff that we have just sitting around. But then we go through and then we decide what we want to run for Fridays and all that. So the video footage is there. It's just kind of like deciding. You kind of like to, when you're doing those, I know early on we did it and then it kind of changed up and bounced around a bit. You like to tell a story. I mean, we tell short form stories on Mondays. With the long form stories, I liked what we did the last season, because it kind of it kind of bridged off the season before into that season and kind of wound down it. And it kind of told us a complete story. So I liked that. Besides that, there's a couple other people have contacted me about doing other things. And I kind of listen. But again, it's just kind of how interested you are in wanting to do those sorts of things. It's a lot, because you got to decide, okay, do I want to go off and do this at this time? And what are the parameters and all? I enjoyed doing the History's Greatest Mysteries. I want to see how that turns out and how I feel afterwards. It looked like it'd be one of the best projects I worked on. And then Sunsets would be releasing and be available. And then I wanted to kind of be able to look at everything and say, okay, what is it I want to do next? And that's kind of all that you kind of get kind of seized in all that, kind of want to see that. So, because your expectation is, well, I think this is going to be really good. And then it comes out and you're like, oh, that didn't really work as well. But I keep looking back at the pictures and it's a little weird to me because they pinned back my hair and did everything and then made me change my clothes completely. But I'm hoping, having worked a lot in the pre-production on that, with a lot of the material with it, they worked with me really well, that turns out really well. So we will see if not the criteria or whatever, however that all unfolded, that if that actually turns out as good as it did. Someone recently, and I just was catching up on the YouTube comments, someone was talking, it was Frank talking, and he was telling a story, and then the person was saying, and I'm not sure if it was pointed at me or Frank, but it was during a video that is just Frank, and it was talking about going to the AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, which I wished Frank or I drank. Maybe that would help us if we drank that much, but we don't drink that much. So that's, people's misperceptions, man. You have a freaking beer or two a week, and it's everything goes out the window and stuff. The drinker on the show was Woody and his White Russians. But Woody will drink. But Frank, yeah, I think I've seen Frank once in a blue moon. Frank has a beer. I don't think I've ever seen him follow up a beer with a second beer. And yeah, there wasn't much drinking at all. I don't know about Magnuson. DeLille, his is more of a green variety than the alcoholic side of things. So, and I don't even know with jobs and everything in life now if that's even in his in his thing now and all, even though it's legal. But yeah, it's just kind of weird. People kind of get this idea of like, oh no. So I thought that one was amusing. All I could say was LOL. But people always have the wrong perception of certain things. So I like going through those comments, and it's always fun, Sometimes you can get a good joke out of it and have a good laugh or something. Sometimes it's a bit odd because sometimes I have no idea what someone's talking about. And I sit there just befuddled, and I just do that little thumbs up thing or whatever, just like it and get out of it because I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. So, and then there's the people that do the other thing. This is the craziest one. The people that want to message something and then they decide after they send it, because it emails, okay? And the comment emails to me and then it goes post, but then you decide to delete it. But when you delete it, it's really funny because I still have the email of what you originally said. So I get to see what you said, and then it's deleted. So I really can't address it. And I have a collection of those. I generally, as a rule, don't want to talk about them because I think the people realize once they go back. The Clark Gable of the Superstitions. I don't know. He had a mustache. I don't have a mustache. But, again, it's just, like I said, it's just odd what people will say. And I'm not making fun of people because that's the other thing. Then they go, well, you were making fun of me. No, I don't even know who you are. It's just sometimes there's comments and they think they've deleted them and I get them. And it's some weird, random, crazy stuff. And I'm like, what are they even talking about? And then I'm watching the video they're talking about, trying to figure out where they pulled that stuff out. And here's the funniest thing. And I've talked about this before. We did stuff purposely in videos to kind of show, hi, trying to catch and watch this so I don't get behind. I'm not getting behind for a change. But we purposely did things to see if anybody would catch the subliminal things and things we were putting into the videos and around, but with the videos. And I've never said what they are. Trevor's the only person besides me. Trevor's the only person aware. Frank's not even really aware of most of it. And I've told some people, and they're set on figuring it out. Nobody ever had a clue, which I find hilarious that there's treasure hunters and conspiracy theorists. And we put stuff that I thought, well, this will pick up their ears. They'll get, someone's going to put this together. Oh, this is cool. And it was when we were going through all this Bob Ward stuff. So I was like, okay, we'll use I said, Bob Ward, maybe he was being too clever. Maybe that was his problem. He was being too clever, and we figured some of the stuff out, but maybe it's just a matter. And I've realized that is it a bit, because you have all these people, and they're like, we're into this, and we're into that, and I'm this smart, and I'm that smart, and then you're like, well, I didn't make it that difficult. I didn't make it that apparent, obvious, but yeah, it's kind of weird that after all this time, and how many years we've been doing this, and no one's ever hit on any of it. And no one's ever commented about any of it. And I'm just like, huh. And I don't want to get too deep into it because I still find it funny. Is that someday, once we're all done with this, let's face it, one day that we'll be all done with this. And it'll just be sitting out there, nothing. And someone's going to come through. And there's going to be like a Reddit freaking thing on the conspiracies and all this stuff with Legend of the Superstition Mountains. Because of all this crazy stuff that I put in there and did just to see if people could catch certain things, and there'd be a story within a story and so forth. So I'm going to find that very fun, even if I'm paying attention at that point. That'll be the funny thing, right? Then there'll be a special. They'll have me back on TV as they're trying to figure out what was going on behind the scenes. So there you go. So creating our own drama that nobody gets. So, and like I said, I didn't think I was that clever. So, hey, Jax, well, he left. Okay, so Jax wasn't that interested in it. I bored him. He left. I miss being able to see how many people are floating in and out. I can't do that anymore. What do you think of Victoria Peak? We've done so much on that, and I've talked about that. Got books on it and stuff. There's a book over there, Victoria Peak Mystery. I can't see who it's by. I found that to be a pretty good book. I got the Gold House and the first book in that series. I like that stuff. I find it really interesting. I have a lot of stuff. I have the court transcript from the case of when Doc Noss was killed. I showed that. I think it was that one thing. I found that in a pile of stuff, and I've showed that. There's some really interesting stuff I have on it. Obviously, something went on there, and nobody's going to really know the extent of it. I think there's a conspiracy theory. There's some BS, and there's some real stuff down and through it. And I think so many people have blown so much smoke, nobody knows which way's up on it. Hey, brother, a little early for me, but I made it. Well, there you go. I don't know where you're at if it's early for you. Like Australia? But, yeah, I've always liked the Victoria or Victoria Peak, because it's supposed to be technically, I think, isn't it Victoria Peak? But it kind of got associated with Victoria instead, I think, is the whole deal. But there's some good reading material. There's some good material out there, some good documentaries. And I've just been fortunate enough with the treasure hunting authors, what would you say, collections that I inherited. Those gave me a lot of material behind and back in the day, dealing with it. And we'll get into it someday, but you don't want to it's not the Victoria Peak channel. So we'll touch upon that stuff and all. Cover-ups in our country. I will always say this. Cover-ups, I always find, someone once told me about a cover-up within the company I work for, and went very detailed and had this whole thing worked out. And the problem is they had just basically heard wrong, and it was total BS, and it was really a tragic situation, and yet someone had taken something that was just kind of it was awkward because it was a tragic thing. It was very sad. And yet they had spun this whole web of stuff. And I heard it from several sources, and I was like, that is not in any shape or form what it is. So 30 people here so far. Well, there you go. But, yeah, I'm not one for a lot of that stuff. I understand there's conspiracies. And conspiracy is when a group of people decide to do something and cover something up and all. And that stuff does happen in all phases of life. But I don't go for, like Victoria Peak. So, it's more robbery or thievery when someone takes something from you. How much of a conspiracy? You got to have the conspirators. And there's so many different levels of what people think of that whole Victoria Peak conspiracy theory. It's like the Lost Dutchman stuff. There's so many conspiracy theories. And I'm always like, Dutch hunters have a tendency to blow so much smoke and create so much garbage that nobody knows the upside downside. It was kind of like when I explained the Abe Reed story of how, Cox and this whole thing about Adolph Ruth being murdered out in Rogers Canyon or out in Rogers Trough or by Iron Mountain. But then Abe Reed packed his headless body, and it was, on the burro wrapped up in a tarp or a blanket. And Abe, and and Cox said something about it looks like he's got a headless body there, which was just whatever he had. And then this turns in and it just continues on to where it's like Abe Reed transported Adolph Ruth's body, this bundle of a body that looked like a body without a head, up to Blacktop. And then other people talk about it being on Peter's Mesa, but then if you ever see the photographs of the body remains, it wouldn't have been rolled up like that in no shape or form, and because that's not how it was found. And the skull's missing in some of the. It's just like it becomes when you sit back and you go, really? You realize how preposterous and ridiculous of a urban legend it really is. But people don't take the time. They just jump on the fact of like, well, that's what it was. They were transporting his body back and forth across the mountains. And yeah, well, I'm sorry. And there's a lot of photographs of concerning that whole situation. Just people like to be stuck on. And I talked to someone recently about that, everybody sees the one picture of Brownie with music standing over the skull, the one picture of Brownie holding it, and then the other picture that shows the other side, which was not as popular because it's a little out of focus. It's not a big deal. And it's kind of really odd because people think, okay, there's those pictures. Well, there's pictures of the site where his remains were found in the area, and there's pictures, of that vicinity and that arroyo up from Needle Canyon. And that also is another problem for people when they find out it's in an arroyo, like a tributary area off of Needle Canyon. It's not on blacktop. And someone even tried to correct me on that. It was like, well, it's blacktop. It's you could say foothills, but it's in a tributary at the base of blacktop that runs into Needle Canyon. So it's technically a little tributary that runs into Needle Canyon. And it's more an arroyo or this. It's not even a canyon. So it's a really strange spot when people, and we want to go out there sometime and film and then give people the perspective of it, because without really giving the location, we don't want anybody to go out there messing around. But it's marked and everybody knows where it's at. And it's really strange because it takes you where you're thinking he was found here, or he went up this mountain and all that. None of that. No. So it's a very different perspective when you're there, when you see it. So people will tell me what they know, and I'll be like, have you ever been there? And they're like, well, I don't have to. And I'm like, have you ever seen these pictures? No. Well, then you should, and you should go out there because you should get that put in perspective of what you're talking about, because a lot of times what people even write about has nothing to do really with the actual place and where they found the body and so forth. Really enjoying Ride Through Time. Great read. Thanks for the heads up. Always appreciate. Well, it's such a good book. It's a great book to start with. And we'll start doing that occasionally. I should have pulled one this week and kind of always put one up there every once in a while. But like I said, every month or so we should pull a book down that's a really good read. And not just like everybody's latest book or this or that, but a really good read to kind of get you a little depth, get your toes wet, and kind of get you into the Dutchman. And a book that doesn't take you into too much weird stuff or the wrong places, because that is a tendency. Tom had a really good ability to sit down and tell that story without spoiling stuff, with keeping to the legend, with keeping to kind of the whole mysterious superstitions thing, but without going too far and making it ridiculous. A couple people, it was more than one or two, several people were actually very surprised that I don't think I've ever found anything. And I've talked to Tom. Well, I did talk to Tom privately about it, and he didn't have much to say on it because he didn't think much of it. But he was not a stone map guy. But he understood the stone maps are a draw for people. And once the museum could have it and that sort of thing, he saw it historically important to the overall general story and part of the myth and mythology of the mountains and tumblance and all that. Tom was a heck of a researcher, and so when you look at that, he's not going to put it in his books because there was no place to go with it. He's not going to outright lie to people about it, so he just left it and omitted all that. And if you privately spoke to him, he'd give you a look, and he just was usually very short, very succinct about it. So, and I'm sorry, it disappoints the stone map guys, but hey, it's just how it was. He would patiently listen to some people, but he'd prefer not to. And the problem is, I think Frank can share this, is everyone into the stone maps has a different theory, a different place, a different idea, a different way to tie it in with stuff, and it doesn't really tie in, and you don't have enough time in the day to explain to them how many ways wrong they are. And that is a big problem, is when I sit back and say, okay, I have file cabinets and files and stuff. And a lot of the stuff, a lot of the lectures I give is on Jacob Waltz, the real timeline, history, chronology of Jacob Waltz. I like Tom's books because they give you some of that sense. I liked the Bark Notes because you could actually take parts of the Bark Notes and fit them timeline and the people who lived during those times and know they're real people, and that when the events happen, you can build something out of it. And at times people will say things and I'll be like, I don't understand that. And they won't want to, well, this. Well, what are you talking about? Where did you get that? Where's your source? Well, it's been a thing. Well, what thing? I don't understand the thing. What's your source? Where did you read this? Where did you get this? Did you read between the lines and come up this? What are we talking about here? And they get frustrated and they act like, well, you're not, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, no, I actually really do know what I'm talking about most of the time. And another problem comes that we have people, and someone just today I responded to, there'll be a day we'll get into certain people who were basically, well, they're liars, but they basically decided to delude people with stories of the superstitions. And they made it to be like, I'm a historian, I'm an author, I'm a really important person. And then sometimes even authors would take these people's stories and then insert them without really fact-checking them or mentioning the problems with them. And then later it all starts unraveling. Nobody expected you to be able to go to Ancestry, just sign up, and then go in and search and get all the information and newspaper clippings and the depth of things you can. If you were born and you had family, and it's not very hard to find out where you were born and where your family was born and where your dad and grandpa came from, and it's not very hard to follow everything. It's very easy. This is a world that it's very hard to be off the grid. Some of the people I know, and I've taken it as a challenge, there's people I know that are off the grid, and it's so easy still to even find things out about them. And I do it just not to be a jerk, but just to see how far you have to go. The one person I will say, and he's still out there because he was in newspapers and other information through the 80s, was Salvador Delgadillo. Sal doesn't have much of an imprint online except for what he's posted and some newspaper stories where he's mentioned, like when they had to rescue him out of the superstitions. I think Ron Feldman had to go in. Sal says he wasn't rescued, but what I'm saying is the reference to the story is they went in because Sal was late coming out, and someone went in, and I think it was Ron, went in and found Sal and got him out of the mountains. That is kind of a different reference. If you want to find history of Salvador, it's very, very difficult. He's one of the few people that I would say is literally, it's hard to find him on the grid. And he's sat down one night and he told his life story, and I took a lot of notes so that I could go through and say, it wasn't about following up. It was like trying to make sure there was a bit of an authentic history and some of the dates, so I could kind of get some of the dates honed down. And sometimes you share that with people because Sal would find it interesting. And I was like, wow, Sal's really off the grid. He doesn't have a cell phone. He finally does go on. Well, he's been on here a bit and jumps in and comments on things once in a blue moon. But Sal's not that guy, and he's managed to stay away from it and out of it. But it's even, and being born outside of the United States helps a bit too, and the travels he's made. So Sal managed to, and I don't even know if he still to this day has a driver's license. So there you go. But that's hard. And in today's society, it's very, very hard because it means you got to go through this, because Arizona is a public record state. A lot of states are. And the states that aren't, you can still find information. So just basically looking through things, there's going to be, you got a ticket somewhere. Something happened somewhere. You were in the newspaper, whether it was in second grade or high school or something. Something happened somewhere, and you can start pinpointing. And once you get a piece, you can start attaching pieces to it and so forth. So it's really hard to get off that stuff. Nobody knew that. And a lot of these guys that started in the 90s and early 2000s had no idea to this day, like today, how easy it is. I mean, I don't even know how. If you're born today, you're literally just everywhere. It is so difficult, and it's so easy. I mean, everybody knows the Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and these places, and people use pseudonyms, and it still doesn't work. People know who you are, and it's a crazy world now, where it was so hard to dig up stuff in the 80s, and today it's like literally sitting there with your phone. You can do something and put together a bunch of research in real time while you're having a conversation with someone else. It's incredible. And I will tell you, Ancestry is one of those. And there are so many repositories of public information, and the assessor's office and the county recorders. There's just so much information out there. And I'm just surprised how much of there is, like I said. And if you want to know someone, you can. If you want to spend the time, you can dig around and understand stuff. So those people were kind of like went off the edge because suddenly everything didn't add up, because they told way too many stories and it didn't work out. Like I said, yeah, well, shit, I don't have a ton of pictures, but I've lived here. And there's people that know I lived here. People were in the mountains with me. But yeah, there's people that have done that, and I don't know why, but I guess they felt in the 90s and early 2000s that these fictitious stories were a good idea, but then I think they believed their own fictitious stories, and then what happened was it kind of got out of the way, so far blowing out for them, that they started creating history and depth to it. And then next thing you know is they're taking things and will say, well, this is this and this is this. And you got to remember, in the Dutch hunting community, once you've kind of got in, people are showing you stuff. So I've always been a big deal about saying, so-and-so told me this story. So-and-so told me this. And there's sites that people told me about I'm not going to reveal. But people show you things and you learn more and you have all this stuff. And there are people that will take and say, well, he's dead, so I'm just going to own this now. It's mine. And then they go out. It's really, really weird. And then you suddenly realize, wow, why do they do it? I don't know. But someday there'll have to be episodes. Maybe we'll pick some people out. I mean, and there are some people that are kind of realistic. I mean, let's face it, Bob Ward could wind it up good. He told some stories. There's some ridiculous stuff that obviously he knew better. But he did travel the mountains very extensively. We know he was out there and a lot of what happened. And he was a Dutch hunter and he was a mountain man. And so we know an extent to it. There's a lot of truth. But I want to check the stuff at the Hayden Library. There's so much stuff. There was one thing I went to look at recently, that there was some things I wanted to go through, and I figured, well, it won't be a big collection. The collection is 150 boxes, so I'm having to go through the indexes and decide what boxes I want to check out of the collection, because I can't. There's no way I'm going to go down there one day and be able to go through 150 boxes of stuff. But yeah, there's between the Hayden Library, the State Archives, which are located, some of the archives are located up here in Phoenix, some are down in Tucson, and then you have the U of A's collection. There's so many collections. And then when it comes to the Superstitions, most of those collections, anything to do with the Dutchmen, is in Tom Collenborn's or Greg Davis's collection. Those are probably the two most extensive. Anybody that thinks they got a bigger collection than either of those two gentlemen is kidding themselves. I think most of the material most of us get was from one of the two of them. And when we get something like, there was some certain material I got that I knew I found through, there's a lot of things that happen. Things are misfiled, and I found things that were misfiled, and I made copies of them. And I made sure that I send one to Tom and one to Greg, because that was my way of saying thank you to them for always sharing with me. When I would ask a question, they'd say, yeah, I got a file on that. Here, copy whatever you need. So we all did that and share. So everybody kind of has a bit of everybody's, but those two gentlemen probably have the largest collections. and you just scrape the surface. I think Tom's might have been the most in depth because of the history of his dad being out there in the 20s and 30s, and this, the photography that he did early on, and that Tom continued. So Tom might have had the most extensive long term, but Greg as well has not only his but collections of other people, and he also has the Don's collection, which is pretty extensive, and which I'm going to get to after I answer this. So those highway. If you don't want, can I get some of those Arizona Highways magazines if you don't want them? There's no Arizona Highways that I've seen so far. They're all treasure hunting, treasure world, prospector magazines from the 60s and 70s. There's a ton of that stuff, but I don't think there's been any Arizona Highways. In Arizona Highways, most of that's available online, so you can go look at them online. That was something someone did. Someone posted a picture and was like, here, look at the golden autumn fall of a cowboy in Carefree Cave Creek. And I was like, I know that picture. And I went to look for it and found out it was the cover of an Arizona Highways from down in southern Arizona, nowhere near Carefree Cave Creek. And I'm like, man, why do you do that? Why do people post stuff and just be so ridiculous to try to fool everybody? I mean, come on. It was a nice picture. It didn't have to be associated with something you wanted it to be. Anyhow, but yes, the magazines, I don't know, whatever I don't want, I might, there'll be someone that'll want part of the collection, maybe, once I'm gone through it and cataloged it. But then the other thing I'm thinking is maybe at the Rendezvous, if I still have the stuff around, maybe bring it out to the Rendezvous and people can go through it. And if people want some of the stuff, that'd be fine too. But I've been going through it. It's, you got to remember, every box has got to have hundreds of magazines. And there's 8, 10, 12 boxes. So I'm just slowly processing through. And I'm still trying to process through 6 5-drawer cabinets full of files and magazines and manuscripts and articles on that end. So I'm kind of a bit overwhelmed on all that. And Trevor has not been much help. So, and you know what I do, of course, is I go out and I buy another book. And then, of course, that slows the whole process down. In fact, speaking of, here's one. Valley of the Guns. Very interesting book. This gentleman, Eduardo Obregon Pagan, came out, spoke at the Dons, was our guest speaker. There you can see it. But excellent talk. He talked about the Pleasant Valley War from the psychological side of things. Hey, Dallas, how's it going? And this book is, I haven't read the book. I listened to the hour-long talk, which was excellent. Really, really interesting, his perspective and everything. I want to read the book. I haven't read the book because I'm stuck on right now. It's a book on the U.S. Cavalry's journals concerning Cochise. All the, it's like 400 or 500 pages of all the military reports and interviews and stuff of interacting with Cochise. So I'm going through that. And then there was another book on something else that I was reading. So I'm going through these other books, and this is the next one I got kind of coming up because I really liked his lecture. Yeah, I got him to sign it. See, hold it. He signed it for me somewhere. I swear he signed. There it is. I was gonna say I did have him sign it, but very nice gentleman. And he doesn't say it on here. He just says Eduardo Obregon Pagan. He's actually got a PhD. He's doctor. Anyways, he got his doctorate. He had a very interesting story, but how he grew into this, getting the dry throat. Good book, I'm going to assume, since the talk was so damn interesting, and how he broke everything down. And you don't need the book 800 pages, which there's a lot of books on the Pleasant Valley War that are very detailed and all. He made a lot more sense than a lot of those types of books. In a brief time, in an hour, covering the history and the situation and a lot of what happened. So again, urban myth and mythology jumps over all of it. So that covers that, which was an interesting one. I don't know if I got anything else sitting out like that close. But yeah, that was an excellent guest speaker. I think our next guest speaker for the Dons, Dallas, should make the meeting. It'll be Jesse James Feldman. author of the Dutchman's Trail or Jacob's Trail. Just Dutchman's Trail is the second book. So he'll be there with some of his books, talking to the Dons. It'll be, I think, one of the only maybe public speaking engagement he does this year. Jesse's very picky. Well, okay, picky sounds wrong. Jesse's very... He usually only will do 1 or 2 guest speaking engagements a year. I understand it, the reasoning why, but he will be out to speak with the Dons of Arizona, so it should be, and that should be next month. So February, March, should be in April. So we'll be doing that in March. I think March we're going to Tucson and have some other stuff going on. And we'll be filming some of that. We're trying to put some stuff together for the Dons. The Dons hike video. We were talking an hour ago about video stuff. We have the whole Dons hike, and we haven't. I know Trevor uploaded it, put it in the hard drive, and that is a thing. There's all these hard drives. Someday I'm going to take a weekend or have a day or two, and I just want to go through these hard drives and write down what's in them, because I can remember, man, we filmed so much stuff sometimes. Wonder where it went. And one of the things we want to do as we make the trips with the Dons is break these things down and kind of show some of these trips and kind of like get that out there for everybody can kind of, if they're not a member of the Dons or they're not able to make the trip, so they can kind of see and kind of understand the history and kind of what the Dons are putting out there, because it's supposed to be about educational purposes and so forth, learning. So there's that. Which that hike went really well. I don't know if we'll have a time for a hike. Maybe we'll have a spring hike. Maybe we will. Maybe we won't. Talk to him at the rendezvous for a smart, good man. And Dallas, I put word in on, like, what's up with Dallas Wright, man? The guy's been to everything. He keeps coming out and stuff. When does he get his initiation where we tie him to the burning stake? And he has to cluck like a chicken. I don't know when that's going to happen. What was the first thing you ever found? And what do you mean, in the mountains? God, man, that's too long. I'm trying to think of what I would have found in the mountains back when I was a kid. And if I don't know, rocks. You know, when you're a kid, you'll bring anything home. So you find rocks. And God, who knows where those rocks are? They're probably in a box somewhere, buried in another box. I'm trying to think of the first thing I can think of that was really cool, something, or, you know, found that I could take, or found that I discovered, or, you know, I'm trying to kind of, it's just so different because there's just so many different ways that I kind of perceive all that. There's a lot of stuff I thought I was going to find that I never found. But, no, that is a good question. I'd have to sit around and think about it. Maybe that's a chasing legend sometime, because I'm going back to when I was a kid. And I knew people around me, there was stuff people found or something, or we went places because of what people found. But me, myself in particular, I'm trying to think if there's, you know, it was funny because when I was a kid, I was just learning. And I'd read books. The big thing to me was read a book and go like, oh, holy crap. Where's the spot that Glenn McGill was in? Where was he staying? So I would go to these places because I wanted to stand in those spots. I wanted to look at what these guys did and where they did. So it was really completely different to me than going out and like just searching for the mine. It was kind of that different way of going, why didn't they find the mine? Is this really the mine? Is it really not the mine? Why do they think it was the mine and they now think it's not the mine? So that was more in my head. I was kind of skeptical as a child. And as I got older, I just continued that path, and I was always curious. So when you come home, you go like, oh, more material, because it really, I had Thunder God's Gold. I had The Lost Dutchman Mine by Sim Zeeley, After Bit and Killer Mountains. And then there wasn't really that many books I could find on the bookshelves. Helen Corbin's Curse of the Dutchman, Tom Collenborn's A Ride Through Time. And Tom did a lot of newspaper articles, so you could grab those. And Bob Ward did the ones as Val Paris. There just wasn't as much material as you think, because the books usually ran a printing and then were gone. So you once in a while would see one, or, you know, in a used bookstore or someplace, you'd catch one. And so it was much different. I don't know why the dog's whining. Must be something out front, cat or something. Oh, there's a red truck. Who knows? Anyways, so thank you so much for your honesty and keeping things awesome podcast. Pick up later. Up that started later. If the clue truly believe. Is there one clue? I believe most of the Jacob Waltz stuff. Arrowhead's the first thing I ever found when I was a kid. I remember my first rock still have it. I remember, see, to me it's like, okay, there's the grinding stone. It's on the shelf somewhere. No, it's somewhere. Anyways, it was a grindstone. There was a Manos and Matate, but that was like they were digging our pool and they found it. Again, doesn't count. I'm trying to think. There has to be something around somewhere. But when I was a kid, I didn't take photographs. Someday we'll have to do a slideshow of like the 15 photographs I took for the first 10, 15 years, which are really bad photographs on Fujifilm, and they just look like shit. It just was different. And I was like, I could have probably found the Lost Dutchman and probably would have brought back the wrong stuff and left the gold at that point sometimes. But we would pick up rocks. You always had a pocket full of rocks, and then you had a shoebox or something. You kept coming home and putting them in there because you thought rocks were cool. So as a kid, and I don't even know where all that stuff is. I knew there was a box with some stuff in it. I found in the shed that had some rocks, but I don't know what I did with it. And it was just like something from back when I was a kid. It had some old like Hot Wheels and stuff in it and all. But I don't have a story like that, and I'd have to think about it. Because most of the stuff is like, oh, look what they found. Look what we found here. And then, you acquired things. So those really aren't my stories. I just look around just to think if there's something like that. But you're not very nostalgic for a long time because you're just a kid. I guess that's the fact, is you're not looking at things like my experiences. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to do this. You're just in real time going through life. And I didn't even take photographs. And then when I met Randy Wright I started to take a few photographs in the late 80s and the early 90s, got a few, but even those aren't very good. It's like I look at them and go, what the hell was I thinking? And as I got better cameras, but it was Randy Wright was like, hey, I think we went out. I went out one day and spent a whole time. He said, show me some pictures of when you were out. And I was gone out like 12, 14 hours. And I was like, what pictures? And then Randy was like, well, look, okay, I'll take pictures, and then you take pictures, and then you'll be in my pictures, and I'll be in your pictures, and then we can send them, and then we'll have twice as many pictures, but then I'll have pictures of me, you'll have pictures of you. That got me starting taking pictures, where next thing you knew is we'd go out, and I'd take 150, 200 pictures on a hike. But for a long time, I wouldn't. Now I got quite, it's extensive. It's a ton of stuff. But I've backed off a little because I don't know what to do with all these pictures now. But there's discs and discs and discs full of pictures of places we went and did stuff. And that was part of with Randy and some other trips I was making, was going back to places, getting photographs and trying to picture. It's funny how something looks so different 15, 20, 30 years from that point, because I'll remember something and go, and then I'm just like, this doesn't even look the same. This is the same rock. I recognize this rock, and we were here, and I know we were camped right there, but everything around me looks completely different now because there's just so much time has passed. So it's kind of sad, but it was books and going to places in the time and just being in that moment all the time. And I didn't think there was something with the German guy. What? My first rock, Legend of the Superstition Mountain, with the German guy. I don't understand with the German guy. Okay? Legend of the Superstition Mountain with the German guy. I don't get that. Okay. I'm looking somewhere to see if you posted something else. I'm kind of lost on that. Anyways, and hey, don't feel bad because I get lost a lot. So anyways, that's kind of that history when you're younger. Now, recently I've ran into a few people. I spent a little time in the mountains. The Dutchman. Yeah, I know the Dutchman was a German guy. And you're saying he's the Legend of the Superstition Mountain? Is it just a statement? I don't know. But anyways, now I think, what's your thoughts on it? On what? Legend of the Superstition Mountain? Well, Tom wrote a book called that. I did a TV show called that with the German guy, the Dutchman. That's what this has all been about. We've done like 300 videos about it. I did a 6-episode television series on History Channel. I've done another half dozen shows on it, several films. What's my thoughts on it? Do we have enough time through the next 72 hours for me to discuss my thoughts on it? Because that's what I thought I'd been doing all this time. There was a man named Jacob Waltz. He came, and I did a great talk with the Dons and stuff, and I have a great lecture that I do on it. But he came to America, and then he decided to be part of the gold rush, kind of got in there late, became a citizen of the U.S., and his paperwork was filed in the Los Angeles County. And then he went from there. He became one of the first, that's weird, but he became one of the first pioneers coming into Arizona, into the Prescott area. And then from there, later would move down, and he would settle in Phoenix in his later years. And, let's get you to tell your life story now. Well, that's what I feel like. I don't know how do you summarize it? Man, it's a demand. But that's kind of the summary. And in the process of this, before he died, he was with 2 people. And the dog does not like this. But you're going in there on Monday. Well, good. Have a good, safe trip. Make sure you let someone know where you're going exactly and when you plan on coming out. So I am going to find it, okay? But let someone know so that someone will know if something happens. And it's not saying you're a rookie or you're an idiot. It's saying that things can happen. And if something happens, that someone's aware to make sure that they go get you and bring you back. Okay, so there we go. Okay, I'll be out there Sunday. Have to look for my little buddy I dropped. Do you have an area you feel the mine may have been? I've talked about that a bit, yes. Well, been, it would still be in the same place. It didn't get up and leave the area. That would be funny if it just left. Said, you know what, they haven't found me. I'm going to move somewhere else. Yeah, there's several places I've been. There's a couple places I've been that I wish if I remember, the Peralta story involved a series of mines that were back in the mountains. So I've always been interested in that. Would there be any way to find a series of mines and tie them together? Tom's dad found some artifacts in several mines and made him believe it would have been late Spanish, early Mexican mining in the time period of the Peraltas. And it seemed to tie into that. And I always found that very interesting. So I was always looking for one of those covered or possible mines that would be old like that would have an artifact. And then I knew were some of the artifacts that Tom's dad had pulled out, and then I was hoping to make contact with where those went to have the artifacts or certain samples compared to see if they were related. The idea is, if you know there's 3 or 4 mines and they're interrelated from the same people possibly somehow, or suspect it because of actual science, then you look at maps and different things and you suddenly have an idea, okay, I know where these are. Is there a pattern that I see somewhere else that fits this? That was something. They didn't blow up the entrance. Most of the stuff would be a pit mine. They would find surface ore and dig in. They didn't dig like white people. So I always, and the Indians didn't blow it up. The Apaches say they covered them. They covered all the mines but one. So to me, it was always like finding that type of stuff. And I knew where some was, but it was finding more material that would basically possibly be able to connect one to the other. That was why there was 2 maps that I've always touted, and it's not a secret, the Frank Fish map, and then the other map that Hank DeAndrea brought in from Chicago. And those 2 maps always interested me a lot because they both are significantly old. They're not fake maps. They're not maps that were made in the last 50, 80, 100 years. They're very old maps. And because of that and a bit of the lineage and history of them, it made me wonder, okay, how do these interconnect? Do you think it's on the east side? No. So, and it could be. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's on the east side. So, because Walt said when you enter the mountains, it's in like one of the first canyons. Yeah, I mean, his directions, if you take any of his directions, it doesn't put you on the east side. So, I've always kind of looked at it as like following up, and everybody knows that I always kind of, now I sound like Rick Lagina, Oak Island science. Those guys always drive me crazy. Like, we'll misinterpret science this week on Oak Island. But, they give them a date. This is sometime between 600 AD and 1800 AD. And they go, it fits right into our 1600, 1500 area. Well, no, that's not what they said. Very important here, guys, what they're actually telling you. And I always find that very funny on a lot of shows. I sit there on my couch and start pointing things out of like what they do. And I'm like, I'm paying attention to you guys. If I ever sit down and break bread again with Gary Drayton, I'm going to point that out to him. Gary's very careful what he says and how he says it, but I'm going to point out is like, you guys sometimes need to be careful. You get me sitting up straight on the couch fast because I'm like, no, that's not correct. It's just kind of, I really want to find it. That's good. It's like when I was reading that book, and I don't have it handy, but I was reading this book, and it was about some various events up in the Sedona area. It was about vortexes, and I really don't believe in that stuff. I'm the guy that jumps back and forth through the vortexes and portals and goes la da 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 da, and all the people get pissed because I'm making fun of this serious stuff. And I was reading this book and going, okay, prove me wrong. And then the guy starts talking at all the sandstone. Inside the sandstone, there are crystal structures made by an ancient alien race and all this stuff. And I'm like, no. And then I realized I'm only a third into the book, and he's touting off this stuff that is just absolutely, literally, there's no way anybody can believe this. So I go down to get another book at this store. And because they sometimes, when you're finding these really weird books, you got to go to really weird places. And I go to get another book, and I kind of jokingly said it. Yeah, last time I got that book, well, what'd you think of it? And I was like, I couldn't finish it. And they're like, oh yeah, it's just too much, isn't it? It's just, and they were so serious how it's so overwhelming and life changing. And I was thinking, no, it's like someone with a third grade freaking education wrote a book, and it's terrible. It's like, no, they just made crap up. It's like a fairy story, and there's nothing, it's not scientific in any shape or form. You can go out there with a pickaxe and prove them wrong. But, people buy it. It's the tourism trade, so whatever. And the reason I don't go, maybe sometime I need to do that. 10 books no one should buy and just show these books that I've bought. Because, it's tough sometimes. I go, I have hope. I start the books. I have hope. Don't buy anything by Tom Dogo. I'm going to just briefly run through that and just ignore it again. I saw a map of the Spanish racetrack area. Do you know anything about this? Spanish racetrack is supposedly where Marietta was racing the horses. Spanish racetrack is up by Marsh Valley. So it's a known spot area where they believe that they were racing the horses, racing the ponies. The Bandit was doing it with the Peraltas at that time. Don't know about the whole story. Seems a little bit of a romantic urban legend. But that place is there. The charcoal beds were there. There were things that were there that showed a presence. And they said they would gamble and race horses and stuff, which is kind of like a rodeo. Before you leave, or when you're taking a day or two off, everybody's getting a little time in. They do stuff like that, race horses and stuff. Tree talks about that place. About what place? Spanish racetrack? Is that what we're talking about? I don't know. I'm kind of lost there. I got to go back, and then I go around. Okay, it must be Spanish racetrack in Marsh Valley. Yeah, so there's the charcoal beds and that stuff. The area with the stumps and all that stuff. And everybody's pretty familiar with those things. Yeah, and it's in the Bark Notes. The Bark Notes kind of go on and talk about some of the Peralta stories and various stories that were passed on. It's a very good thing that Jim Bark kept track of all that stuff. So I don't think you can tell any of it too much from one thing from the other. There's been some cool discoveries in that area. It's kind of central to so many different places in the mountains. The one thing, and there were springs. You had White Rock Spring, and then you have Charlie Boy Spring somewhere in the area. And I'm sure there were springs back in the day, and water holes that aren't even around now. Thank you. How old is Medicine Wheel and easy to get to that hill? Which one? Do you think it's on the mountain? It should be, because where Walt said, I've never been to the top of Bluff Springs. It's on my list. You got to go there, Dallas. That's such a cool trip. You can make it from the west side. If you let me know, I'll tell you one of the easiest ways to get up there. It's a lot quicker if you got the legs and the wind for it. It's kind of it's difficult unless if you're in good shape for it. It's the quickest way up, and it gives you more time up there. Otherwise, you go the long route around Miner's Needle and up the Ely Anderson. But no, it's you got to go up there, and you want to spend a day or two because there's so much stuff between Canyon de Fresco and the peak, and then Glenn McGill's stuff on the north end. And then Richard Peck's stuff was on the north end. And there's just so many people that worked and so much that happened up there. It's very, very cool. So, the Medicine Wheel. So, there's a number of different wheels. There's one on Black Cross Butte. It's still up there. You have to go park by the gate at where the Homeland Security gate is going to the dam. And then you go up the mountain. There's kind of a trail. Once you get up there, there's a good trail up there. But you go up and you go to the east, and it's up there, and I don't know if you can see it on Google Earth, but you can see that one up there. That one's still there. There was one on the Salt River. Was it the Salt? There was one on a little mesa by the Salt River for a long, long time, and I might even have a picture somewhere of it back in the 80s, and it's gone. I mean, someone went up there, it looked like almost with a bulldozer, and just cleared the whole flat area where it used to be. A lot of that stuff disappears over time. So, have you visited Skeleton Cave? Are you talking about the Skeleton Cave on the north side of the Salt River? Yes. That's a climb. I went to it because I was interested in I got up there, and then I realized it was it's like saying I climbed Kilimanjaro. Yep, been there. Do I really want to mess around or look for a piece of bone from someone? No, not really. It didn't really. I realized I could have just read the story and not went there. I did go, and then I was just kind of like, all right, I don't understand the significance beyond. I did know the story. Yep, I went there, and I was able to put it in perspective. Yeah, and I don't know, Skeleton Cave, I thought we talked, yeah, we might have talked about that, but, yeah, that's where the soldiers fired up into the roof and killed, and then they stacked all the bones. There's pictures of where they stacked all the bones up on the walls and stuff, and then finally they removed everything to make sure they got proper burials. But to me, it's a weird thing, because I get kind of like, is it accessed by the river? Yeah, you'd have to if you want to get there, you really got to go by the river and tie up and then go up the side. It's on the north side of the river. Actually, if you're watching History Channel on our show, I do point to it at one point. Unless that's, you know what, I remember being there, and I remember every day we went by it, we talked about it, and we never stopped because they didn't see, there was no reason to film it. It had nothing to do with the show. But we do point it out, so it's in there, and I know it's on maps. If you get there's the maritime maps, or I don't know what you call them, but the maps of the lake for the guys in boats. Okay, it's a map for the guys with the boat, show you the depths and everything in the lakes. That's a great map to have for that and other caves in the area. So, but yeah, like I said, I went there one time. I think Randy Wright went with someone once. He might have went with Jack Carlson. And I just kind of was like, I realized it's a sad place. It's a sad situation because it was mainly elderly people, women, and children in there when they killed them. And they just basically slaughtered them. They didn't have a chance. They weren't going to give up, but then it was just a sad day what happened there. And And then it just became a place where people went and visited and stacked bones. And who knows how many people took bones home from there and stuff. Just weird. So I went, and then I just had a kind of a weird feeling about, okay, I can say I was here. I can put all the story in perspective. I'm not picking up any shell casings. I'm not picking up any bones. I didn't pry around or look for something. I think Randy was up there with someone, or someone was up there, or someone videoed. But anyways, I thought Randy said he was up there with someone. It wouldn't be Carlson wouldn't have done it. Someone was up there and picking through and trying to go through and look for bones. And it was just, he said it was just, what are you doing? So it's a kind of a weird thing. So if you read the story, you can find plenty of pictures on it and stuff. But yes, it is accessed by going the north side of the river. Do you think Waltz was referencing one miners? I have no idea. We don't know. Indeed creepy. It was indeed creepy. It's not the only time I've seen creepy stuff people do. Yeah, it's so expensive to rent a boat, unless I'll use a kayak. Yeah, and it's a long way back there. It's a long way. You're fighting across the dead lake, and then you're fighting upstream, remember, too, to get there. You could go the other way. It's going to be just a hell of a hike to get all the way down to there and around to the shoreline and then go back up. So there is another way. Just like I said, find that map, and I think it's I don't know if it's the Canyon Lake or Apache Lake map, and it'll show you the Colorado, and it shows you all the caves and different stuff along there, and it'll show you exactly where it is, and then you can use a topo map and work out different access points. But that's the only way I know to get there. Randy might have went a different route, so I don't know. But yeah, creepy stuff people do in the mountains. I don't know if people get excited or what it is, but people do weird stuff. And Randy's been around some of that because he's told me stories, and I'm like, dude, when that stuff happens, yell at people, man. Don't just turn your back to it and walk away, man. You have to yell at people like, hey, what are you doing? It's just so disrespectful and wrong. We're not archaeologists. We shouldn't be playing around with other people's stuff at all like that. And then there's people that think they're ceremonial hoodoos, and they mess with stuff, and it's like, no, leave stuff alone. If you realize you're in a certain situation, you should just say, you know what, I'm just gonna leave stuff alone. And I don't need, and one of the problems I had was, I think I talked to Trevor about his couple areas, and I told him, here's where they are. I would recommend never to go there. There's no reason to go there. But I let him know where they were, and they're on maps. But I told him I never really even took really pictures unless I was facing the other way, because I don't think people need to know. If someone sees a picture of something, people are weird. If you show them olas that are full of possible cremated remains of Native Americans from 1,500 years ago, they get weird and want that stuff. I want nothing to do with that. It's accident that I come into that stuff. And it's purposeful that I leave that stuff. But I told him this is a good idea to know, so you avoid that stuff. But it's just respect to someone, to me. Whether someone wants to say sacred or not, you should just come upon something like that and say, oh, okay, I shouldn't mess with this, and just leave it alone. Because it's respectful to the people who are alive, or people are descendants of that person. It's not even the person that's there because they're gone, but to the people that followed and whatever their memory. You're just being respectful to that. I think people lose sight of that a lot. Just came back from Blacktop Mesa. Man, you were expensive to rent a boat. Then you went to Blacktop Mesa and you came back already. That was quick. Saw petroglyphs. Awesome place. There's a lot of petroglyphs up there. Did you see the Knight Templar cross up there? And that one's always interests me because there's a lot of stuff people have drawn. I always try to figure out why the Templar cross is up there, and I don't know who did it. I'm trying to remember the guy's name that was up there digging holes. There's a big deal on him, and we talked a little about his story. He said his grandma was born there, and she was an Apache, and they dug holes up there and all this, and then we found out his grandma was not Apache, and she was born in New Jersey, and she never left New Jersey, so kind of ruined the whole story. It was a good story till Ancestry came along and ruined everything. Damn Ancestry.com. So, wow, we're right across the bend, and it's time for us to get ready to go. But no, this has been a good conversation. I think we've touched a little bit of everything along the way. Yeah, I would recommend the Skeleton Cave unless you really, really feel like it's like the challenge you have to do. There's so many other better places. The wheel up on Black Cross Butte along the Salt River is a better trip. There's some ruins and some corrals up on Horse Mesa that are better trips. There's other things that are just far more interesting and cool overnight trips and stuff. That's kind of one that ends up being expensive. And then you just kind of feel like, but it's different. We're all different. I've never been one that felt like I had to check stuff off. I ended up on Weaver's Needle because I wanted to see how do you get up it. And then the second time was just me being stupid because I didn't realize how stupid that was the first time. So, and you notice, since I was a kid, I have not done that crap again. And I told Trevor, if you're planning on doing something like that, I'm not going. So, no, I did not see the cross. Was that spiral opposite to the... See that spiral? Yeah, I got a ton of catalog stuff up there. Did you see the cave? There's a cave down below, too, by the Oro sign. And there's a mine, and there's a bunch of stuff up there. Once you discover how much stuff is up there, it blows your mind. Because the first time you go up and you start finding these petroglyphs and these different markings, and then someone starts showing you some of the other stuff that's marked up there, and you go, oh, I didn't see it. And then someone starts showing you the next thing and the next layer, and you realize how many freaking people have been up here messing with this place. It's pretty incredible. You could spend an entire week just exploring that thing, Blacktop Mesa, from the base to the top and all around it, and keep finding new stuff. There's been so much stuff discovered up there and in it, and so many people have dug holes in that thing. It's pretty incredible. There's supposed to be that one little crack that drops down into an underground river that's in there. So they were trying to blow it open, and the dynamite kept slipping and falling in the water. So there you go. And some signing date from 1840. Yeah, and you never know when people write stuff. I mean, I remember there was a story that Tex Barkley said, and even Brownie Holmes said, that there were things added on to the master map down by Charlie Boy and up on Blacktop. There were things that were added to after the fact. In fact, Barkley seemed to point that he thought some of the markings were made by Barry Storm. For when he went to do his book, he wanted to add some things to create bigger story. There were some petroglyphs up there, but yeah, Barkley said they just seemed to populate with age. But that cross is kind of a weird one. It's on a flat stone facing up. It's kind of odd because usually they're somewhere where you can see them and this and that. It's kind of an odd placed thing. I'll have to find a picture of it. But we're supposed to plan a trip. If we ever get the trip and go out there, I think everybody will like that trip because we'll show that kind of stuff and let people kind of try to understand. But again, like we're getting back to, there's so many cool places to go in the mountains. It's like, make sure it's a place that kind of you could enjoy and explore more than just kind of pick around, So there you go. All right, so I'm going to kind of wrap it up here and kind of do my thing and get out of here and grab myself some dinner. Well, that went by fast, and I enjoyed it, but we had some time to make up. Out of topic, any hidden places in the Estrella Mountains? That's my neighborhood, and that's where I'm asking. Thank you, Wade. Have a great weekend. No problem. Estrella Mountains, Montezuma's Head, and up in that area, there's a lot of petroglyphs. There's a bunch of the supposed silver mines up in there. There was an old shack and a silver deposit up in there, I remember. There's some pretty cool stuff in the Estrellas, but it's over by the res area. So you kind of got to watch yourself over there and stuff. A few people get in trouble. That's also kind of a neat trip. You can drive to this spot is where Rivas did the whole thing about the Peralta land grant. And he was using the petroglyphs and even entered his own petroglyphs in that. But that whole area is there. So let's go look for it. Well, we knew where the DeGrazios were. We had a very, very tight area. And then that hill went. And Frank and I have been pissed off ever since. Mike was sounding great tonight. Well, thank you. I finally got the audio right. But the DeGrazia thing, we felt we had it down, and I just sat there. And once that fire rolled through and the storms rolled through and that all ended, we just don't have the presence of patience to drive all the way around Apache Lake and walk all the way in and do that. Hopefully they get the road done, because we pretty much had it narrowed down and done, because we ended up getting several other maps before that were done, and everything fell into place, and we were like, great. And then all that happened and we lost everything. So that really sucked. Have a great night. Yeah, everybody else, thank you. Everybody, thank you. It was really good tonight. So I'm going to get on out of here and kind of do my thing. I'm going to look for my mouse as I'm talking so I know, okay, so I can do my thing. But yeah, still haven't figured out. I got to get a little thing here that plays music and then figure it out and do a thing. You know, that's all, folks. Or something. We got to have an intro and an exit out of this. And I always say Trevor will get that for me, and nothing ever he doesn't even do any. Yeah, it's just me anymore. Someday it'll just be me, Wayne Tuttle, just producer, director, talent, cameraman, audio. There it is. So thank you, everybody. Hope everybody has a great, wonderful weekend and enjoys. I hope your weather's as great as ours is going to be, because ours is going to be perfect. Yeah, I could use some clouds, but no, I'll still take the sunshine. I could use a little color right now after a winter. So there we go. I hope everybody has a great rest of the week. Thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you the next time on The Live.